Kyrie, and welcome to Parsing John. Today we are in verse 45 of chapter 1. About to finish our first page here. We've got all the way through 51 left. Let's go ahead and take a look at our rubric. This is everything that we're looking for as we go through and parse these verses. Our Greek is Heuriske Philippos ton Nathanael kai lege autoi hon egrapsen mou seis entoi nomoi kai hoi prophetai heu e kamen Yesun huion tu Yosef ton apu Nazaret. And that's as far as we're going to go today. Very first thing that I want to look at before we even look for a verb is that we've got another, I believe they're called diaresis. Sorry, I haven't looked that up yet. Clearly you can tell I haven't even edited the last video as of this recording. But anyway, diaresis, which means that this upsilon here is pronounced independently of this omega. Now, I'm not aware of any diphthong that is actually omega upsilon, so I'm not actually sure why our editions of the Greek Bible have a diaresis over this upsilon. It's weird, but whatever. Our last one was in Bethsaida there, which told us that this alpha iota is not the diphthong I, but is in fact two different sounds, I. Now we can get started. Heuriske is our verb. We've got epsilon iota right there. And we've seen this before all the way up here, so I'm not going to parse it again. I'm just going to write that line. Well, I draw an arrow if they're closer, but we can assume the same thing. Third person singular, present, active, indicative. He finds. Oops, that's wrong. Present tense. Finds. Corrected. And that also reminds me, we forgot to close the quote marks right there. He finds. Philippos, we've got omicron sigma right there, so that's going to be nominative, singular, masculine. Standard second declension masculine name. Ton, Nathanael, kai lege. Lege is a verb, so kai is connecting lege, and heuriske. So Nathanael is not connected with anything right there. Ton tells us that this is accusative, singular, and masculine from hohe to. If it were neuter, then it would just be to rather than having the nu right there. Nathanael, since it is not a native Greek word, it doesn't decline at all. Right. Indic. And we can only figure out what it's doing based on the article. And it is, of course, our direct object. And lege, we've got epsilon iota right there, so that's going to be the third person singular present tense. It's lego ero epon. It's active and indicative. He says autoi. We've seen autoi before. This is actually exact same construction. Kai lege autoi, so I technically didn't need to parse it again, but oh well. Autoi is dative, singular, clearly masculine because Nathaniel is masculine. To him. And I think we're going to be entering direct discourse right here, so I'm going to add quote marks. Hon egrapsen. Epsilon nu is the ending of this verb, and this comes from grapho, grapso, egrapsa. So this is going to be the aorist stem, third person singular. Wrote. Hon comes from hos. Oh, that's a terrible sigma. Hey. Ho. All three of these have articles, so we know that these are relative pronouns. This is going to be accusative, singular, and it can only be masculine because the neuter would just be omicron, aspirated omicron right there. What or which? So since we have a relative pronoun right here that we know that we are in a relative clause, so that means we need to keep our eye out for the verb of the main clause. It's not going to be a grapsen because relative pronoun and its verb have to stay next to each other, and the main verb will either appear after the verb in the relative clause or before even the relative pronoun. Well, we don't have it before there, so it has to come after. So take a look ahead. Mouseis entoi nomoi kai. I don't think we read the Greek in this one. I now don't remember. Oh well. Kai hoi prophetai heurekamen. Heurekamen would have to be our main verb. Amen is first person plural. No, not singular, plural. Too many singulars. Heurisko, heureso, heuresa, heureka. So this is perfect tense. And it is, of course, active and indicative from the fourth principal part. We have found. Put a comma right there. Now we want to find the subject of this singular verb here, which we have in mouses. This eta sigma here is a nominative singular masculine of the first declension, though Moses is highly irregular in how his name declines. It's got the accusative in eta nu and I believe epsilon alpha, which is strange. And I don't remember what any of the rest of them are, but anyway, Moses, always very strange. So Moses is our subject, en toi nomoi kai hoi. So en is a preposition, it ends right before kai. It's taking the dative as its object. And this is, of course, singular and masculine nomos in the law. Kai and, let's take a look at hoi. Hoi comes from ho he to, not ho se ho, because there is no accent on hoi. This has to be nominative, plural, masculine. No, that is not how prophets is spelled, sorry. I'll start over. Comma. So then our relative clause is what Moses wrote in the law and the prophets. So what would be implied here is another repetition of egrapsen, except in this case it would be plural, so it would be what Moses wrote in the law and what the prophets wrote. And then we come to our main clause, we have found. And now we can move on from there. Yesun, this is going to be accusative, singular, masculine. If you recall, Jesus is also a very irregular word, except this nu here tells us clearly that this is accusative. If it were dative or genitive, then we would have the omicron, upsilon only, and no nu. Huion, omicron nu again, so another accusative singular. And this is going to be a predicate. So we've got Jesus there, and then we've got what he is listed next. Tu, article ho he to. This is clearly genitive with Yosef as its noun. It's genitive, singular, masculine. Sorry. Son of the Joseph. Ton apu nadzaret. Ton is accusative, singular, masculine. This is going to be referring back to Huion, which in turn refers back to Yesun, the. But since we don't have any word or a noun after ton, we're going to have to insert, sorry, move that up there, the word one, which we are allowed to do sometimes. Apo is another preposition. And this one, as we've seen before from Bethsaida, apo takes the genitive. And nadzaret, is indeclinable, so we can't tell what it is apart from context. And it means the same thing. From Nazareth. And Nazareth is, I think, even less regular than Moses is. I think there's 5 different ways of spelling just this form. And there we go. That is all of this verse. Let's go ahead and take a look at it in its greater context. Philip finds the Nathanael, and he says to him, what Moses wrote in the law and the prophets, we have found Jesus, son of the Joseph, the one from Nazareth. So far, so good. Let me get that out of the way. Sorry. Now what we would do is we take a look at the greater context of verse 43 through 45, which I realized I forgot to do with the previous video. Again, sorry. From 43. On the next day, he being Jesus, wished or wanted to have gone into the Galilee. And he finds Philip, and he says to him, Jesus says to him, "Follow me." And Philip was from Bethsaida, from the city of Andrew and Peter. He, Philip, finds the Nathanael, and he says to him, "What Moses wrote in the law and what the prophets wrote," remember, that's implied, "we have found Jesus, son of the Joseph, the one from Nazareth." So far, so good. Now, the very last thing that we need to do, and then you're free to go about your daily lives, is we want to take a look at all proper nouns in this verse and see which of our two different translation options makes the most sense, with an indefinite article or no article at all. So far in verse 43 and in verse 44, an indefinite article does not help and, in fact, can make things just strange. Philip here doesn't have an article, but we've seen before that it is a specific Philip from that right there, even though there was not an article with him initially, so we can already assume that an indefinite article will not work there. A Philip finds Nathanael. Well, why do we care? Especially when we know that there is a definite Philip before now, the Philip, just without it. So that doesn't work. Nathanael has an article, but that's largely because his name doesn't decline, so it needs an article. Nevertheless, though, we don't have to deal with that, which is nice. Moses doesn't have an article. Now, there's only one Moses who is famous in history, or at least only one that I'm aware of. But we should treat it this way, both of those ways. Anyway, what a Moses wrote in the law, or what Moses wrote in the law. Now, there are two different crowds for this specifically. If you gave them the option, each would choose one or the other. The textual critics, the old German guys and then Jesus seminar people, they would definitely take, or at least I'm assuming based on what they think and what they teach, they would take Moses with an indefinite article here because they don't think that the Pentateuch was actually written by Moses. They think it may be the first one or this part of some of them, but it was compiled by other authors. So they would say what a Moses wrote in the law, meaning all of them. And since Philip here is only pulling from part of what was written in the Old Testament, that's what they would assume. Now, most everybody else would say the exact opposite because there's the implication that there is only one Moses. And we could, if we had so much more time and I had so much more skill, take a look at all the times that Moses is mentioned in the four Gospels, and then we could tell that, at least as far as Jesus is concerned, and therefore probably also Philip, there is only one Moses, and only one Moses wrote it. So, context of the Gospels, at least as far as I understand them, would indicate no indefinite article. But then, remember, I am not an authority in these things. Let's move on. Jesus right here, he doesn't have an article, neither does son. So, we try it both ways. A Jesus, a son of Joseph, a son of the Joseph, the one from Nazareth, or Jesus, son of the Joseph, the one from Nazareth. And technically we could go further and separate these two. A son of Joseph makes sense since we know that he has more than one child. Jesus had brothers after all. So it still makes zero sense to put an indefinite article with Jesus because we know there's only one Jesus talked about beforehand. It would just be ludicrous to stick one in at this point. And then son, it doesn't matter. He is the son of Joseph, well known, probably by this point, since Philip is talking about him. And, of course, Joseph had other children, so an indefinite article would also make sense there. Depends on what sense that you as the translator were trying to get. There's no indication, at least as far as I can tell, one way or the other here. However, we do have this article right here, which implies a definite for both of these, just post hoc, as it were. Nazareth also doesn't have an article from a Nazareth, which has the exact same problem as Bethsaida, so that doesn't make any sense. So yet again, so far in here, nothing makes sense according to my translation, my understanding of the text, with an indefinite article, except son. And even then it's optional. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this text has been helpful for you, and I'm sorry for rambling on and doing things horribly out of order. I hope you continue to join me as we continue through this text, and I hope you have a good day. Farewell.